Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. We talk about the problems people face in their day to day lives. Let's start with the video. My stepsister, Alba, has always been a bit of a B word. My dad passed away when I was very young, as far as 3 years old, and although my memories of him are very blurry, I still feel a sense of warmth, love, comfort, and adoration with and towards him that I just don't with my mom. It's like my memories with my mom are the complete opposite. They're blurry as well, but in the worst ways. It's like she's always been here, unlike my dad, but her treatment towards me all my life has just caused me to repress all and everything she's put me through. And it all just started as soon as my dad passed away. My heart still breaks a little as my grandparents, both maternal and paternal, both recall how my mom brought in her affair partner and her now husband to my dad's funeral to get his blessings for their relationship. This is when they were introduced to Alba as well, who was the result of an affair my stepdad had while being with my mom. Alba's mom left her and my stepdad as soon as she gave birth to them, and as a result, he came to my mom because who would love a free babysitter that would let you walk all over her? Well, even with the protests and threats from my grandparents, my mom ended up marrying this man, and that is when they went no contact with her. But she just knew that she had me to hold over her head, a soft spot for my grandparents, and that unfortunately ended up working as my grandparents always gave in when it came to me because they knew how my mom was and wanted to create a safe space for me. So, my mom is now married to my stepdad, who is obviously using her. By the time they had gotten married, he had cheated on her twice and blamed everything not just on me, but Olber as well. His logic was that having children caused him stress, and the fact that my mom was busy taking care of us always meant that she had no time for him. So he had the right to cheat on her over and over. And my mom, being the person that she is, with self respect as low as hers, she just agreed to whatever he said, as if they were holy words. But of course, she's human too. Unlike every other human being, she had her anger too, which she removed on none other than me. Because, of course, the moment she laid a finger on Alba, she knew she'd lose him. So she took out all her anger, frustrations, and rage on me through her words. I grew up with it, and needless to say, I was impacted with that tremendously. It wasn't just my mom, though. As time went by, I became the punching bag for my stepdad and Alba, all following in my mom's footsteps. Alba was the worst of all, though. Not only this girl, who is younger than me, obviously, bullied me verbally, but did things to me that caused me to be bullied in high school as well. That is when I had just decided that I needed to run away, as far as I could, when it came time for college. But of course, at the end of the day, that wasn't enough either. I continued to tolerate this terrible treatment until the day I turned 18. And boy, I bolted out of the house. It was like the happiness of me leaving was mutual. Stepdad, Olber, and Mom were waiting on this to play happy family, and so was I, so that I could leave them alone to play happy family. Still, then, my mom would often call me and berate me for things that I didn't even do. I'm not sure why I continued to take it, though. Maybe I was just too done, or maybe nothing mattered to me anymore. But what Olber did here did matter to me. I still remember I was back home from college and it was Father's Day. My mom and stepdad have this tradition with Olba wherein they go out to grab brunch together on Father's Day. This year was no different. I drove myself to my grandparents' place where we had our own little Father's Day tradition of making a card and a small gift for Dad. Most of the time, it being a mug or a sweater that was either painted or knitted by me. This year, I had decided to make both. I'm not sure if my mom and Olba knew about this tradition. I'm assuming that they didn't because the moment I returned home with two huge boxes, both filled with cards and gifts she had made for my dad all these years, because I wanted to sit in my room and go through all of this. Well, I guess Olba had different plans for me. Soon as I got home, she started berating me for not picking up the call. I told her it was on silent because I was busy, and as always, she threw some insults at me, which I just ignored when I got to my room, but that wasn't all that Olba wanted to do. The day was almost over, and I had gone to sleep when I heard noises in my room. Soon as I woke up, I saw Olba standing there, destroying all the letters and gifts I had made for my dad. I was dumbfounded as she continued to destroy my stuff even when I woke up. That is when I knew I had it. I pushed her out of my room while calling her the B word and locked myself in, first looking at my stuff, which was damaged beyond belief. I saw red. I knew if I stayed back, I was going to punch her unconscious, and so I decided to call up my grandparents to tell them that I was coming over. When I got there, I was in tears outside their house with the box full of broken memories in it. I knew the little bit of me I had inside had just died. I knew Olba knew what she was doing, and so did my grandparents. So the very next day, when they called her up to tell her that they needed her to vacate the house she was living in, which was under their name, she was enraged. The word also spread to the rest of my extended family who had similar reactions to this situation. Everyone is fed up with my mom as she has done some things outside this situation too that has left everyone fed up with her. But the thing now is that she no longer is allowing me to get into her house to get my stuff, telling me this is the least amount of repercussions I deserve after being so unfair towards her. What should I do here? AITA? Okay, so a lot of you were asking about my mom's living arrangements, and basically, my stepdad lost his job during the global situation, which caused them to lose their house, which they were previously renting. Ever since losing his job, he hasn't found another one, and now it's just my mom who does the earning and looking after the home. As for her anger towards everyone shunning her, she has apparently loaned a lot of money from a lot of relatives and friends, which she refuses to return. Along with that, Alba has shown similar treatment towards a few of my cousins, like she has done towards me, like stealing, breaking things, etc., which has almost gotten her into trouble with the cops. But with my mom begging, they have left her alone, only with the understanding that she will leave them alone too. This situation was just the icing on the cake. My mom has been like this for a while now. I have heard that she has been this way with my dad as well, putting him into so much stress that he would often have to get hospitalized for hypertension. In a way, hearing this makes me glad that he's not here to see the lifestyle she is leading. He'd probably be disappointed. As for me, we're still figuring out a way to get my things back from her. I have no interest to go back to living with her. I will either find a roommate whenever I return during break, or just see what I can do, but never in a million years I would return back to living with her. But anyways, I will update you all once we come up with a firm plan. Things finally seemed to be moving once my grandparents threatened to call the cops if my mom didn't allow me to come get my stuff. It was kind of surprising how easily she got convinced by a single threat, and my suspicions were right. My mom not only destroyed several of my things, but also threw out some of the last pieces of memories I had with my dad. My room in the house was locked, and this woman went as far as to break the door open to take away my things. I called the cops as soon as I found this out because I knew at that point her hate for me was getting out of hand. It was like even after years and years of abuse, I hadn't felt unsafe, but this time I really did, and so I decided to file a report just in case. The thing is that couldn't really do anything about the destroyed property, but the damage done to the door of my grandparents' house. They could file a report for that, and they did. This made my mom angrier, and apparently, according to her texts, which range from her berating me to apologizing to me, her husband has been planning to leave her if she loses this house. Seeing her in this state truly looks pathetic. She has been trying to visit me at my grandparents' almost every day, and I have been trying to avoid her every day. This is all I have for now. We'll update you all later. Updating this with teary eyes, as I hate to admit this because some part of me still hope that you guys were wrong, but you aren't. My mom broke into my grandparents' home a few days back by throwing a rock through the glass window. She thought no one was home when she did this, but I was there at that time. I immediately called the cops and didn't even bother getting out when I heard the footsteps and glass shattering noises. I thought someone had broken into the house to rob or steal. But after finding out it was Mom, I instantly talked to the cops about filing for a restraining order, and with the history of reports against her, this was a very easy one to receive. Ever since this situation has happened, my mom has received an eviction notice and divorce papers as well. Honestly, I feel no sense of remorse for her, since she should have seen this all coming when she let her husband walk all over her while raising the spawn of Satan, who too doesn't seem to give a shit about her. As for me, I will soon be leaving for college and will move to the house that my mom used to live in, since my grandparents wish to leave it under my name once they pass away, making it another one of the reasons why my mom and stepdad didn't like me much. Honestly, at this point, all I care about is moving on from this situation with my head up high, which, with all of your support, I was able to. So thank you for that. NTA, I would cut off all contact and get a restraining order against these psychos. Why didn't your grandparents shift you to their place already? You should have taken that step long back. But regardless, please make sure to move while you still have time. NTA, call the cops on her. Your patience is truly commendable, because if I were in your place, my considerations regarding trying to punch her would have come to life already. My wife, Kim, 36, female, and I, 33, male, just got married, but we have been together for 7 years. We've been engaged for the past 3 years. I've met a lot of her family during our relationship. With the exception of her parents and one aunt, the rest have been polite but aloof when I've seen them. Her parents and aunt have always been very nice, warm, and welcoming, and treated me like family once it became clear we were serious about each other. The first couple of years, it didn't bother me. What did start to bother me was when we were living together and engaged, and holiday cards would be sent and they'd be addressed only to Kim, whereas her brothers and sisters' cards were addressed to her siblings and their spouses. Her parents had invited me to some outings with the family, only to have the invitation rescinded because aunts, uncles, cousins didn't want non family members there. Kim would get invited to birthday parties or cookouts, and I wouldn't be, and that's fair enough since it was their parties and they get to pick their guests. The only times I've had to interact with them was at things hosted by Kim, her parents, or the good aunt. The straw that broke the camel's back for me was last year. My mother in law sadly passed away. Come the funeral, I was not allowed to sit with Kim. When the surviving family members were read aloud, I was not listed. Yet her sister's new husband, she'd been with less than 2 years, was. And other new additions that had been around less time than I have, and they were seated in the family section. I didn't say anything about it, but afterwards, Kim asked if she had heard right or if I had been left off the list. We visited her dad that night and he apologized to us. He let his two sisters handle all the arrangements for the funeral, and they had made the list, and their reasoning was that I wasn't family since Kim and I weren't married. We didn't raise a stink about it and just let it be. Now we've recently had our wedding and it was great. I'm stoked to finally be married to the woman I love. When we were making our guest list, Kim asked about her family members that had always been aloof to me. I told her if she wanted to invite them, I'd support her in that, but I wouldn't interact with them. She wanted to keep peace, so she invited them. At the reception, it was like a switch had flipped in them. They were bubbly, friendly, and kept trying to hug me and welcome me to the family, but I ignored them in favor for talking to friends and family. At one point, the aunts cornered Kim and I when we were going around thanking people for coming and asked Kim why she married a prick. I told them I just don't want anything to do with people who basically ignored me until we were married, and Kim agreed with me. They gossiped about it some more the rest of the evening and some days after on Facebook posts. Initially, I didn't think I was doing anything wrong, but I do feel bad that it affected Kim too. AITA? NTA. They are allowed to be old-fashioned, and you are allowed to not deal with them. Nope. NTA. They're allowed to treat you using whatever arcane rules they wanted to for invites to their events, but that didn't mean there wouldn't be consequences for their actions. I'm not sure why you invited them to the wedding at all. Why invite them to keep the peace if you weren't going to actually do so at the wedding? Personally, I wouldn't have invited them to begin with. Once you were engaged, their behavior became unreasonable and incredibly rude. And to not let you sit with Kim at the funeral? That's just despicable. And they didn't invite you to birthday parties or cookouts because you weren't married? WTF? Did Kim go to them without you? Husband of 8 years desperately wanted a dog and refused to wait until we bought our own home. He ended up getting a dog despite me saying no. I wasn't sure of our apartment's pet policy, so I told him he needed to call and ask them. He claimed he did, but I found out months later that we have a strict no dogs allowed policy here. We end up getting evicted. At this point, he has had this dog for over a year, and I admittedly had been telling him to rehome the dog the entire time for other reasons. I certainly was not anywhere close to being ready for a dog on top of living in a tiny apartment with 3 children as it was. His reasoning for going against me was that the dog was free. His mother gave him the dog. And due to the breed usually being super expensive, he couldn't pass it up, which is 100% the truth, no doubt. Anyways, we get evicted. Not due to the animal, he hit the dog, but due to them raising our rent by $600 over the past year and being unable to afford it. So anyways, we are back to house searching again. We have only 14 days left before we need to vacate the premises. Our landlord has been super nice during this and says they won't put the eviction on our record because we were otherwise good tenants, and she understands time is hard enough without an eviction on our record. So we've been searching high and low, but every single place that is available currently either has a strict no pet or is way too high price for us. The only ones we can afford are the ones that say no pets. I was asked by a landlord yesterday for a down payment for a 3-bedroom, $800 cheaper than we are paying currently. And with school starting in a week, I need to jump on this now. We have gotten no other offers. My husband wants to lie and say we don't have a dog. I refuse to do this. I'm not getting evicted over an animal that we should have waited to get in the first place. I told him he can't move in with me unless he gets rid of the dog or sends it off with a family member until we buy a house. He is now trying to convince me to just move in with his family, which I won't do. He says I'm being insensitive and am not empathetic to his love for this dog, which isn't true, but I also have to worry about my kids and their stability versus put my husband and his animal first. AITA. NTA, I am a dog lover, but I am against people owning dogs when they can't provide proper care. Money is tight, and you have 3 kids. He shouldn't have taken the dog from his mother. I hope you find the dog a better home. NTA, it's so shocking to me that he's more focused on the dog than the well-being of his kids, let alone to come back to your home with a dog without your consent and lying about the dog policy rule. He sounds really immature. Just move in with your kids to your new apartment. He can go to his family house by himself and his dog. NTA, your husband needs to understand that lying about having a pet in a no pets apartment can and eventually will end up in an eviction that is on your record.